Fantastic. All right. Well, I am live from Bloomington, Indiana, and we are on Eastern time, so it's a little after 1 o'clock here. Just had a little lunch. I've worked at a few different places over my professional career. I worked 17 years, though, at Indiana University in their Office of Admissions, so have stayed living here in Bloomington. It's been interesting with colleges now, as we all know, what's been happening over the last few months, and being in a college town, we all have our challenges concerning where we live, urban areas, rural areas, and so on. But in a college town, without students, Bloomington's about 80,000. Add on the students, which is another, between undergrad and grad, another 50,000. We're without 50,000 students and bodies over the past couple months. So that's been very different for us, as it has many other places. Certainly has hit us economically in many ways, and just having that energy and excitement that the students bring to our community. So it's been a little different here in Bloomington, but a great place to be and a great place to live. Again, I'm excited to be here today. Over the past few weeks, I've been talking to different groups, and will be in the coming weeks. Today I'm talking with your group right now, and then I'm going to do my Instagram live show. Hopefully many of you will be able to join us on that with my special guest, Tom Becker from the University of Pittsburgh. It's our first try at that, so hopefully that will go well. And then after that, I'm going to the other coast and meeting with one of the regional groups in Connecticut. So I'm going 3 different time zones today in the next couple hours. So always fun to be able to talk with the members and have an opportunity to answer some questions. Again, today I want to just share some areas that are maybe some hot topics for us in higher education, in working with students and colleges and universities. But I first and foremost appreciate all of your membership in HECA. Margaret, you said there's about 250 in your group total, and about 150 on the program today. So first and foremost, appreciate your membership and what you do for us. And many of you, I'm sure, are volunteering in different ways too. So thank you for your membership with HECA. But again, I want to talk about maybe 3 different topics today that I've been reading a lot about, and I'm sure most of you have too, in terms of the impact of the current landscape of college admissions on certainly all of you as HECA members, but also on the students and families that you're working with, that are your clients. So many things are happening during the pandemic for all of us, not only professionally, but personally. I was sending out a note to a group of people a couple weeks ago on a Friday afternoon, and I started writing "Enjoy your weekend," and I was like, then I wrote, it's pretty much the same as it is, the other 5 days of the week. And for all of you, if you're, that are in the Bay Area and so on, you've been shelter in place for a long time, and I know things are just starting to open up. But again, things are impacting us in a lot of different ways, both professionally and personally. But the first area that I want to talk about today, share a little bit about my viewpoint on it, and then I want to certainly hear from all of you, is will college campuses be open in the fall? And talking to you, I talked with one of the Southern California groups last week, and just after the Cal State system president made the announcement that all 23 campuses and nearly 500,000 students will be going online this fall, so they won't be opening up. And we'll talk in a little bit as far as the announcement by the California system president and her announcement on standardized tests and where that's going. But so many schools are scrambling right now, trying to make some decisions. And I've worked a long time in admissions and enrollment management, and probably some of you during the program today have a similar background. But I can tell you they're working very hard to try to do what's first and foremost best for the students and their safety. There's also a financial consideration involved with that, economically. But so many schools are trying to make those decisions. And I have a daughter. She just finished her sophomore year at Purdue, and she's in industrial engineering. And the president there, President Mitch Daniels, made an announcement probably about a month ago now. He's one of the first ones out of the gate that said, we're going to have students on campus in the fall, and the different possibilities that may look like and so on. And after he and a few others made announcements that the gates have opened, different schools are making announcements in terms of what they're going to be doing. But the last time I looked at the Chronicle this morning, they have a little pie chart that they show every day in terms of the number of the percentage of campuses that they say they're going to open in the fall with students on campus. And right now it's at about 68% of the schools say that. We don't know what that will look like. But, you know, just in the past couple days, let's see, it was Notre Dame, South Carolina, Rice have all said that they're going to open. And it seems to be one of the most recent popular opening plans is one where the students will start in August, maybe a couple weeks early, and then end by Thanksgiving. And so then the rest, then in December, probably they'll be taking their finals online and so on and doing it that way. So the idea is to keep the students on campus without fall breaks, without any big breaks and so on during the semester, and trying to do it that way. But again, they're making some tough decisions right now because economically it has a huge impact. Johns Hopkins just came out and said in terms of the economic impact it's had on them, and you know they have a very substantial endowment at that university. But then there are the small liberal arts institutions that personally I'm really concerned about. I was just reading yesterday that there's an estimate that it could be over close to 340 small colleges could close in the next year or two if things continue the way they are, which is pretty darn staggering. There's a small school in South Carolina called Erskine College. It's a small Christian college. They have 800 students. 700 of the 800 students are student athletes. And so they're extremely concerned because their niche for recruitment has been, we're going to recruit a lot of student athletes. We're going to create more athletic programs. They have men's volleyball there, which there isn't that many men's volleyball programs in Division I, but they started one at, I believe, the NAIA level. But if they aren't able to have sports this fall, what that's going to look like. So again, there's a lot of concern out there in terms of that. Obviously, for you as members and the families that you're working with, your current seniors and so on, I'm sure they're going through a lot of stress right now with the schools that they've decided to go to. And because you guys are in California, I'm sure some of your students, or many of them, were considering going to the Cal State system. And will they continue to, because that's going to be online, and wait that out? I talked with one of the regional groups I talked with recently was in Denver, the Colorado group. And one of the members there said that she has a student that has been admitted to Furman. It was ready to play football, but if that's not going to happen, he's going to stay home because he's not going to go all the way across the country to the Carolinas to play football when he lives in Colorado and be that far away from home. So their parents are concerned. So just a lot of different things trying to make that decision right now. Certainly, one thing that I'm disappointed in, one of the many things, is this summer, those bridge programs that many colleges and universities have, they aren't able to do those, period. That transition period for many students that are marginal in different ways they aren't going to be able to start this summer. So again, a variety of different areas that your families, I'm sure, are considering right now. And I've heard a lot of different stories from members. So I'll kind of stop talking right now about that, but just wanted to give my perspective on things. I consistently talk with a lot of admissions leaders across the country, and they have said that probably by mid-June, the latest July 1st, most, if not all, schools will have to make a decision right now. So they're trying their best to make those decisions. I did hear a quote, I think it was during the interview with the president of the University of Notre Dame here in Indiana. He said that we're trying to do these things. Here's our plan. We're going to start 2 weeks early. And then what kind of hit home for me, he said, and we have 3 more months to figure this out and get it all set up. I was like, okay, that's 3 months. I mean, we all know this is very serious, but 3 months is a long time to be able to pull things together and have that plan to come to fruition. But again, I'm interested to hear what you guys are hearing from your students, your families, and so on, and what your perspective is in terms of what campuses will look like in the fall.
Terry, this is Margaret. I've heard a lot from our members about a lot of new members who have invested in their new businesses, and they're concerned about how the year ahead might set back their ability to gather clients and their ability to really build their community reputations. We just bounced back from Varsity Blues. Where do you think that IECs as an industry, where do you think our validation stands in the next year?
Well, I've heard from a lot of members on that too, and hopefully many of you had a chance to sit in on the webinar that we had a couple days ago that was led by our president, Sherry Barrett. But I think from what I've heard and from what I know, IECs are going to be probably just as or more important than ever. I've heard from a lot of members, there seems to be a delay in what's happening right now with interest in maybe the underclassmen. And a few members have shared with me the pandemic going on right now. People are they're most concerned about just their health, their well-being, and trying to, maybe a parent or two have lost a job or trying to get back on track with things and just the stress that goes with that. So they think that some of them, it's a little bit slower right now, but we're hoping it will pick back up in the summer. My strong sense is that it will. And again, some members, and many of you may be experiencing this, haven't seen much of a change, but others have. One thing that I have noticed in working in college admissions for a long time, the months of March and April are by far the largest campus visit in-person times of any other times during the course of the year. And we all know from working with high school students, sometimes they need a kick in the butt to kind of get the juices flowing as an underclassman and say, you know what, this college thing is real. I went on spring break and visited some campuses and saw it in person and, felt that energy and excitement. And that didn't happen this year. For the months of March and April, they were all, underclassmen. If they were doing something, they were watching videos and so on of college campuses. And, let's be honest, they all start to look, somewhat similar after a while. So we've lost that piece that I think not everyone thinks about in terms of the months of March and April for underclassmen, kind of kicking them in the butt. But I think even more importantly, IECs will be even more important in the future for students because of the unknown and the uneasiness and so on. But again, one of the things that was mentioned during the webinar was that, and I'm guessing many of you are doing this now, or thinking about it or have done it, that the price point that you're looking at in terms of what you charge clients and families and so on might need to be a little bit more creative. I know some members are doing more group work with students and family members, so a lot of different things to look at there. But in answer to your question, Margaret, I think important or more important for students considering what we're going through right now.
Tough question. While we have a pause in electronic questions, we will do our look back, our HECA financial look back, but how do you think we continue to grow in membership? We've had a steady growth for a number of years now, which is very exciting. What do you think our membership will look like? And then also, how can we who are current members continue to sort of grow the camaraderie? Because, through Varsity Blues, the fact that we all stood together was how we bounced fast. So what does HECA look like, and how can we stand together?
What does HECA look like as far as our membership? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. How will our membership continue to grow at the same steady rate, or will our priorities be changing in the next year? And how can we, reinforce that?
Sure. Well, our membership, you're right, has grown over the past few years, certainly, and we're always looking at different strategies to help that continue to grow. And so certainly one of my priorities is first and foremost to keep the strength and the culture that we have here with HECA in terms of the inclusiveness, the family atmosphere and so on. That's extremely important. And so we want to continue that, and we want to do some initiatives to increase membership, but people that will be a good fit certainly for our association. So we're looking at a lot of different things in terms of how we can be more strongly identified to members within the association, but also outside the association, that will then in turn make that more even a more attractive opportunity for our members, more options for them. Certainly with professional development, we continue to do those things, but a couple of not solely just these, but a couple initiatives that are certainly priorities for me and for our board. One is increasing our brand and increasing our presence with college admissions offices. Certainly, we want to make sure that our members have opportunities to have as much exposure as possible to different types of institutions. So we do those obviously through our college tour opportunities for members. We're really expanding our regional coordinator program. Sherry Gravely is doing a wonderful job with that, and we're up to probably over 70 right now. So when college reps are connecting with our members and they're traveling or they're doing Zoom meetings and so on, they can work with the regional coordinators and then the members in that particular area. I just sent out, if you read the letter I sent to the membership on Monday, I sent out for the first time for HECA, a newsletter to close to 3,000 colleges and universities from mainly the US, but also overseas as far as the UK. We're getting more interest from Canadian schools and other ones. But one introducing, if they aren't familiar with HECA, to college and university leaders across the United States in this short newsletter, who HECA is, how they can connect with their members if they want to get the contact list to be able to do that. So we're trying to do much more outreach with them. A big plan for me was to be able to go out to different conferences, to the different affiliate conferences. Several of those I was going to come to Western and Pacific Northwest were a couple that I had planned on coming to this spring, but not able to, and also go out to different college admissions offices. So I'm trying to connect with them through Zoom meetings and so on at this point. So again, building our brand and more opportunities in terms of connecting with college admissions offices. And again, a little plug for my Instagram show here in a little bit. I'll be talking to another college admission rep there from the University of Pittsburgh for members to hear about that. And then also a second one that's near and dear to me, not only professionally, but also personally, is equity and access. And I think I want us to be able to, as an association, make that one of our initiatives, one of our priorities. All of you received a few weeks ago the questionnaire from our Equity and Access Committee, and getting your feedback on that, what you want that to be, what you think it should be for our organization. But with standardized testing now possibly going online, and the AP exam through College Board, where that was kind of a little bit of a debacle over the past week. And I read this morning that some students and families are suing College Board right now because they couldn't, as you well know, that they weren't able to send in their school reports after that. And then ACT they said, I think it's within the next week, maybe. They're still making a decision if a June testing date, their June testing date will be in person at high schools. And I was talking with someone the other day and said, do they not realize the high schools are not open at all? Are they going to open for a Saturday morning, and our proctor's going to be willing to come in for $120 and risk their health and our students and so on? So equity and access for students as far as standardized testing, then access to colleges and universities and so on. And like I said, that's important to me. And 90%, and I'm sure this includes many of you, 90% of our members do some type of pro bono work. And so I want to expand upon that. I want us to have certainly not only a local voice with our different members, wherever they may live geographically, but also a national voice. Be able to work not only as an association, our association, but also partner with our other associations. And certainly the biggest one is NACAC. And I'm currently the chair of the professional development committee there, and have served in different roles over the years with NACAC. And being able to partner with them in terms of equity and access and what they're doing. As we all know, that they just, in the past few weeks, they named their new CEO that will replace Joyce Smith, Angel Perez. And he is a wonderful person, both professionally and personally, and was our plenary speaker last year at our conference. And I was one of the many people, I'm sure, that sent him an email and said, congratulations. And he wrote me back and said, thanks a lot, Terry. And I want you to let you know, and I think it was, quote, I am a friend of HECA. And that means a lot. The brand new CEO of NACAC, nearly 16,000 members, is a friend of ours and is interested in working with us. And I think that will help us in so many ways to be able to have that, again, building our brand, connecting with college admissions offices, but also just being able to work with them in terms of equity and access and what they're going to be doing, because my very strong sense is that will be a priority for Angel coming up here in the coming year and beyond.
Thank you for that. I know we're all excited about pooling those resources together. We have lots of questions coming in about gap year and deferral. We are trying to, usually when a student comes to us and says gap year, it's a per student case-by-case basis. And now we have this wide swath who are coming and saying, my parents aren't comfortable with me moving to campus. Frankly, I wouldn't be either. I've been in universities for many, many years, and I would not be comfortable with those choices. But given your position through enrollment management and your friendships, do you think that deferrals will be more likely to be granted, but how might that impact occupancy and further planning, and therefore will be denied because they're offering online courses?
Right. That's a great question. I can tell you, in the admissions world, deferrals were never a question in terms of, like, if a student wanted to defer, it would, relatively speaking, it would be a handful of students each year. They would maybe, they would want to work for a year. They would want to travel. They would want to go to Israel for the semester, for the year, whatever the case may be. And so it was never something that was, something that they had any challenges with. In fact, there were some schools, I remember talking with them at a meeting, it's like, what form do you use? What electronic form do you use for students to be able to officially defer? And they said, we don't have a form. They just call us, we talk them through it. We, make some notes in our computer system, and then, they come back in a year and we do that. So this is new to schools, and they're, on top of everything else that they're dealing with, they are having to think about now, filling their freshman class first and foremost this fall with the class of 2020, but then students going to do it, if I defer. Now, I have heard from, a number of people kind of tongue in cheek, and when they say that students are going to take a gap year, they say, what are they going to do? Because if they can't go to a campus and they can't travel overseas, that, they might limit their options quite a bit in terms of what they might be able to do during that gap year. I think many of them are working on plans for students that, say, great example would be, student wants to go to the University of Georgia, where my friend Patrick Winter works. And he has said that they've had many conversations with students from outside the state of Georgia who want to go there to school, but the family is saying, is my student going to sit home in San Francisco and pay out-of-state tuition 3.5 times the amount that a resident would pay, and sit home there and not be in Athens, Georgia, taking classes? Is that going to be worth it? So they're working on plans right now for students to say, well, I want to defer, but I'm going to take classes at this other school. How will those transfer in, and so on? But none of them that I've talked to have a concrete strategy set up for a high number of students that will defer at this point. So they're still trying to deal with that. But again, what I mentioned earlier, first and foremost, they're working very, very hard just to fill the class this fall. And so I think any of those students who are interested in deferring, they're probably having long conversations with them in terms of all the opportunities and the positives to still stay with our campus in the fall, still enroll in the fall in some way, shape, or form, and continue it that way. I've even read, and I'm sure many of you have too, that there are some even private schools, but certainly public universities, but even private universities that are saying we're going to discount tuition if you live out of state and we end up having to go online. We're going to discount that for you. Because if a student doesn't start at a school, if they start at another school and they stay home, they may say, you know, the second year I'm going to stay at that school, or I'm going to stay closer to home now. I've kind of gotten used to that. So admissions offices and enrollment management offices and universities as a whole, they're doing everything they can to get those students on campus this fall, if at all possible. That's why so many presidents right now, so many universities are coming out and saying, you know, if they can, with a big splash and say, this is what we're doing, we're going to open up. And what that looks like, we aren't sure, but they want to make sure that the students know that this is going to be happening and we're going to be on campus, or we have this particular plan. So we'll see what the gap year or deferment may look like at this point. But like I said, I think many of the schools are just really strategizing right now, trying to retain those students who have previously committed in the fall and keep them on board.
In that same vein, usually this time of year, we are strategizing ED, EA, RD in balance with whatever that list is. In general, our EA, ED strategies, we will have to put off until we see some definitive choices on the universities, or is that something where you think we should just stay the course as we usually would?
I would say stay the course from my experience. I don't see college and universities at this point, none of them are planning to change their admission deadlines, their approach to ED, their approach to EAA. Too many schools that have an established ED program that are filling their classes up to, as we all know, nearly 45 to 50% of their freshman class is ED. I don't see them changing that. They may change where, I think a big change that we'll see in the fall is because of the spring semester of junior year, that so many high schools varied in their approach to it. Some of them continued to give grades. Many of them did pass fail. There were just a lot of different variables that are out there. So I think that will then in turn, the big change that we'll see is more schools are going to ask for additional grades as a standard. That would be my prediction for the fall. So they won't change their deadlines. They'll continue their early action deadlines. They'll continue their ED programs, but it may be a little bit later decision on it. So if it was, say, ED as November 1st or November 15th, and before they were saying, okay, we'll let you know by December 15th, it may be, okay, the deadline is still November 1st, November 15th. We want to see what our pool looks like at this point, how many students applied, and so on. But they may be saying, boy, the student's kind of on the fence for our early decision program. And spring semester, junior year, it was tough classes, but everything was a P for pass. We'd like to see the fall grades with some actual grades, classes and grades that actually have some, A through F on their transcripts, so we can get a little better idea. So again, I don't see, at least at this point, but I have a pretty good sense that I don't think that the deadlines and so on are going to change. It's going to be more of, they're going to tweak some things in terms of grades, when it may be a first marking period or maybe a full semester, and just making decisions a little bit later.
We have a question coming in that has a common thread with many others, which is that there is this sort of myth that this year will be perhaps a little more lenient, and that students who may not have been considered for a school will be, because of course there's the occupancy balance. But then we have the reverse myth that our juniors are going to face a very difficult challenge because just their competition pool will be so much larger. Do you have an idea of which myth might have more fact?
Well, I think first of all, the current graduating class, since there are about, last time I checked, about 750 college and universities still are accepting applications. Around this time last year was around 300 or 400. So I think this year's class, I've not all schools certainly, but I've seen many schools dip down, and we've read about this too, and I'm sure many of you are experiencing this. They've dipped into their wait lists much earlier, or they've gone into them where they haven't gone into them in the fall. They might have taken 10 out of 3,000 on their wait list. Now they're going into that. I've seen schools that would never. One high school that I know very well, the school was admitted some seniors this year that they would have never even taken a second look at last year. So I think first and foremost, this year's senior class, again, not across the board, not every single school, but many schools, they need to fill their class for the fall, are being what I like to term a little more flexible with their admission standards. Now, as far as the junior class, I wish I had a crystal ball and could say if it's going to be more difficult or less competitive. I think that's a tough one. Like I said, schools, the people that I talk to really haven't discussed that in detail very much, if at all, because again, they're just concerned over the next few months what that looks like. But I would say, again, they're probably going to ask, as I mentioned earlier, ask for additional information. But I don't know. You throw in the component though too, the piece of, so many schools have gone test optional for next year. And without that piece, they're going to have to be looking at some different areas a little more closely. It'll be more of a holistic review, which I believe is a good thing for students. So they have that piece that was taken out that was always like, okay, if 1320 is this at this level and a 1400 is this, and anything under a 1250 doesn't even get a second read type of thing. So they're dealing with some new things there too that they weren't before. But I don't see it, to be honest, I don't necessarily see it getting any tougher for the students. It may be a little more lenient because they might, if this year's freshman class, if the school is shooting for a class of 500 and they come in at 425, that's huge. If they're, like a small private school that's tuition driven. So therefore, they may be looking at a class that may be a little bit larger next fall, and that could happen at a lot of schools in that case. So we all know then that would be to the advantage of a student because their admit rate will go up. So if anything, I think it'll either stay the same or maybe not be quite as difficult, but that's kind of generalizing it. Certain schools may or may not fall into that category depending on what their brand is and how competitive they are in the first place.
So if we move that question out a little bit further, then does that mean that, okay, full disclosure, one of my students said that they didn't get the number one school, what they really wanted. So I advised him on contacting the admissions office of the school that he did want that denied him, just to put forward his, why I want to be there. Do you think that students may have a good chance at that? Of course, we don't want to turn to our entire class and say, go ahead and do that. But do you think that in some circumstances, and what those might be, some like indicators?
Would that be for this fall, Margaret? Is that what you're talking about?
For our current seniors who have already made up their minds, but given the environment, they think maybe I should, send that letter to University of Chicago and tell them, I'm sure you looked at my sophomore year, but let me tell you some additional information. Are there certain characteristics about candidates that you've noticed in the past that those are the ones that should raise their hand?
I think, well, first of all, I think pretty much all rules are out the window right now in terms of, how admissions have worked in the past for this, for this fall for seniors. Again, as I already mentioned that you guys are well aware of in terms of wait lists look much different, admission standards look much different. So I would say a student like that to contact the school, and if they say they're willing to take more information at this point, some of them will go, like a UChicago or a top tier school similar to them. They may say, no, we're done, we're good, because a lot of those schools they're more than fine. No matter what happens in the enrollment management world, they're going to be okay. But that's like 2% of schools. But if a school says they're still willing to look at information, then I would say definitely. And certainly the obvious would be their spring grades, or a teacher that they had maybe in the spring in an AP class, could write something in terms of, the student, in AP physics, he or she was in my class for the first time in January. And so, that particular teacher wasn't able to write a recommendation, but said, this is something that I really want you to know about the student in terms of how, what they were like in my class and how highly I recommend them. But I can tell you from an admission point of view, the student wants to make sure that they contact the school first and say, are you willing to look at more information? Because some will be like, we're done. We haven't made all our admission decisions, but we're done as far as information. Other ones may say, sure, we're willing to take a look at that. But the key with that overall is that it has to be new information about the student. That's something that it's kind of across the board in all admissions offices. When the student says, oh, can I submit additional information? Can I do, more recommendations? And the admissions office will say, is it going to tell us something different about you? Is it something that we're sitting here with your electronic file in front of us and we have all the information, what's here. Is it something different? Is it something additional that we don't have right now? Then if they say they're willing to take it, then go ahead and send it in. Certainly, again, grades is the obvious one from the spring semester, whatever they may be. But if something else, where something unique happened, or a teacher that was, the student really took off in the class or whatever, they can submit that if the school, I think, is willing to accept it at that point.
I want to give a last call to our attendees. We will lose Terry in a few minutes. Of course, we can tune in on Instagram right after this meeting. But if you have any direct questions for Terry, I don't believe that option will be available in your next venue. So please take this opportunity to ask your questions now while we have our last few minutes. So in this time, while people are typing, can you tell us what our next HECA event is?
Well, it was going to be Denver, as we all know. And again, I talked with the Colorado group this week and told them, shared with them the disappointment of that. But the nice thing is we're going to be in Denver again. We're going back there. We just postponed. So we'll be in Atlanta next summer and then Denver in 2022. But the next HECA event, we're working on certainly a lot of online things. The Instagram, the webinar went, so well a couple of days ago in terms of helping our membership in terms of their businesses and some tips there. So our leadership and many of the committees are working on other ones that we want to be offering here in the coming weeks. So stay tuned for that. We're working on more, possibly another in-person professional development opportunity. So we would have the Professional Development Institute at our national conference, yearly conference that was going to be in Denver. But we're looking at some possibilities at this point of maybe offering another one over the course of the year, even mid-year maybe, where it would be in person for folks. So we're looking at a lot of different things. I tell our board, and I'll share with you as membership, as executive director, really nothing is off the table at this point. I'm willing to, and I know our board is too willing to listen to everything and anything as far as possibilities that are out there within reason, of course, but we're looking at just new ways, new strategies. But as far as in person, hopefully we can be in person soon. We were supposed to have, which personally kind of heartbroken, where our next college tour was supposed to be in Indiana, in my neck of the woods this fall, but looks like we're shifting that, of course, more than likely, but it will be later on. So we're trying to produce and offer as many opportunities online. Um, so I think probably, especially in the next coming week, in a few months, we're going to try to increase that even more.
I have two last questions, and I'm going to save the heavy one for second. The first is that we know that the sports injury essay can, sometimes just put an admissions representative right over the edge because it's their 80th essay about the sports industry that day. But with COVID, all of our students, they should, when is that appropriate? When is it not? Is it, if you don't write about COVID, is it, well, why didn't you? Of course, it was the biggest event of the year. Do you think that your present and former colleagues are sort of bracing for the redundant essay, or do you think that they're really hoping that students are going to set that aside and talk about their full qualifications?
Yeah, wonderful. I'm so glad you asked that question, Margaret, because I have had discussions with my colleagues about that. Those of you who have been in the business for a little bit longer know that when 9/11 occurred, probably for the next 3 years, that's all we saw was 9/11 essays, how it impacted the individual student and so on. So it was like 9/11 was a big deal, impacted a lot of students, especially in the Northeast, that had direct family members or neighbors or whoever it may be. It wasn't exclusive to them, of course, but mainly that was the biggest group. And reality is that this is much, in terms of this is impacting everyone, what we're going through right now. Who I talk to, and I agree with this 100%, is that if a student wants to write as far as how COVID-19, the pandemic, has impacted he or she, then definitely go for it. The key that will be, though, not how they have observed it affecting society. We all know that, or the health industry or whatever. But the key here that I've heard over and over from admissions professionals when I ask this question is how it's impacted them personally. Have they had to take care of 4 siblings while their parents were working online during the day, or did one or both parents lose their jobs, and economically how it impacted them, not how it impacted their dad, that he lost his job, or mom, that she lost her job, and how they saw them, but how it impacted them as an individual, and what impact, what influence did it have on them. So certainly admissions officers are going to be reading a lot of COVID-19 essays in the coming year, 2 years, maybe 3 years. But the key will be is how it impacted the student individually, just like anything else that happens in our lives, how it impacted them. Did they have to step up in the family and do these things? And these were the lessons that they learned, or they saw, a family member that and unfortunately had to pass away, and how it impacted them and how it changed their life and so on. But that will be the key. But certainly, if they want to write about it, we all know there's nothing bigger have an impact than what's happening right now, and especially for younger people in the adolescents in high school.
Yes, yesterday, as an aside, as someone on our HECA webinar mentioned grief counseling, and I pinged them right then. So in order to bring out our empathy for these situations, for us to have some grief counseling background. And that was my aside. Let me give you the last question. And then I know that we will have to let you go very quickly. So I just want to say thank you so much for taking this time. You've answered some pretty heavy questions that I know all of us, this is what we think about. And to have some perspective is really quite comforting. The last question is, you've given us some ideas of where we are going in the next year and how we create that consensus. But the question is, what is HECA's job 1?
HECA's job 1 is serving our membership. So anything, whatever we can do, most importantly, to myself, to our board, to the leaders in HECA, but I can speak for myself, is our members. That's the number one. And so we want to listen to what all of you are saying, what all of our members, our 1,200 strong, are saying, what needs that you have as members, what you want us to do, what you want us to represent. And so, not real complicated. Our members are number one. We have a lot of different priorities, but all of them we're doing them for our members, for the students and families that they serve. But we're a membership association. We're the Higher Education Consultants Association, and we want to make sure that everything that we do always comes back to serving our members and making them stronger professionals and proud to be a part of our association.
Excellent. We have several people that just don't want this conversation to end. I do not blame them. They would like to know, what is your Instagram title or handle? I'm sorry, I'm not up on Instagram, but if you could give us the directions on how to stay with you this morning.
Sure. You just it will go live in about 9 minutes, and you just go on you go on the HECA account, not mine, but the HECA Instagram account. And then at 2 o'clock, you'll see it if you're friends with us on HECA, and then you'll see that there'll be a live sign there. You'll actually get a notification if you're on there at about a couple minutes before, and it will show that information, and then you just tap the button and then we'll go live.
Wonderful. So someone is reminding us that it is HECA Online. Thank you so much.
Yes, HECA Online. Yes, and this is, I'll be honest, this is the first one. I'm excited. I'm enthused. Don't know how it will turn out, but one of my thinking through all the opportunities that we offer to members, lots of webinars, which are wonderful, lots of articles and so on. But this, I wanted to do something that's a little more digestible, a little quicker. So it's 10 to 15 minutes. That's all we're doing. It's going to be boom, straight to the point. Get the information. Go on with the rest of your days. So, like I said, we're giving it a shot. We'll see how it works out.
Well, Terry, thank you so much. This was wonderful, as I've said, and I will see you on Instagram in just a few minutes. This video has been recorded and will be available to our HECA members, and we wish you a wonderful day, and please stay safe, stay well.
Thanks. Same to all of you. Thanks again for the opportunity, Margaret. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Bye now.
Bye.